Okay. All right. Listen to Barbara Green tell her story, and notice a couple things you'll notice with Barbara Green. She calls microdaily EMF everything but EMF. So it's going to be ESP and ESPN and maybe a couple other things, but don't worry about that. Just focus in on what she says about inflammation. And she may not even say the words inflammation, but what she describes is happening inside her body screams inflammation. So pay attention to that as you hear Barbara Green tell her story. Okay, here we go.
Some things that I want to say that I have been dealing with, and I was on the microdaily ESP for 1 month, and I saw tremendous. I even was just taking 2 in the morning and 2 at night, and I was telling you some problems that I was having. You said increase it, and when I increase it, it eliminated the other issues. I just want to give you an idea of some of the things that I was suffering with. Number one, my balance. I would fall. They gave me an MRI. Was nothing wrong with my brain, nothing wrong with my ears. It was the fact my brain wasn't getting a connection to what it was supposed to do. So when I got on the EMS, I immediately stopped balancing. I started balancing. I was also going to physical therapy. That helped, but it didn't help like it, did until I got on the EMS. As well as I was tired. I didn't feel like doing nothing. I had pain constantly in my knee, my left knee. I had surgery. I had a knee replacement, and that didn't do me any good. Matter of fact, the chief doctor at Oxford said that I shouldn't have had the surgery because it was my back. I suffer with severe inflammation that automatically almost just lessened after 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks on the micronutrients. Then my brain, I couldn't remember nothing. I was forgetting. I have not been on it since January because I started in December the 27th. My orders still haven't came in yet. So I'm a testimony. Please get an extra bottle if you can, because if you run out, your body gonna tell you need your microdaily. And my pain came back, my mucus came back, and it's all from not being consistent with and even my appetite. I was telling you that I was losing weight, but then I started desiring sweets. You told me to get on the fatty meats, which is salmon, and I did it. My appetite went back. My weight, I'm at a standstill. But I'm sure when I get back my microdaily in my system, I'm going to be back on track. I'm serious. I could not live without it from what I've seen thus far. Another thing, I have eye problems really bad. I've had the cataract surgery, and I can't wait to get on the CBD, not the CBD, the ones for the eye. Yeah, and then we're not going to leave the CBD out because I'm depression. Anyway, we ain't going to even go there. Anxiety, all of the above. So I am really a living testimony that these micronutrients work, and in a short span of time for my body.
That's quite impressive and amazing. So sorry that you're having the issues, but well,
Jonathan, that is too funny. I messed that all up. See, that's that brain wasn't giving. That is too funny.
You did just great. But now listen, listen, folks. Did you hear how she was rattling off all these interesting things that was happening in the body? And the one thing she said was massive inflammation. Massive inflammation. That's a big deal. So, and I want you guys to see the connection between inflammation and something that this neurologist also says, because that's the thing that you have in common. So listen carefully to what this neurologist says when she's talking about COVID brain. We're focusing on when she brings up inflammation.
Inflammation in the brain can cause dysregulation of a number of different cell types and have lasting consequences to cognitive function. Understanding that when the pandemic struck and we saw how profoundly immunogenic, how profoundly inflammatory, even relatively mild cases of COVID could be, I really worried about a neurological health crisis. And I think we're watching that unfold right now. The rates of persistent cognitive symptoms in people who have recovered from COVID is frankly alarming. We need to understand how to intervene and offer effective therapy, or there are going to be just millions of people suffering with these persistent cognitive symptoms. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a virologist. I'm a neurologist. But I am alarmed by the neurological possible consequences of this pandemic, and alarmed by the neurological disease that's already evident in many, many, many survivors of COVID. Even from early in the pandemic, it was very clear to neurologists that COVID infection results in a remarkably high rate of persistent neurological symptoms, including quite a high rate of persistent cognitive symptoms that includes things like difficulty paying attention, difficulty with the speed of information processing, difficulty with concentration and memory. And that is something that we should all be paying a lot of attention to. That is really, really concerning. It's debilitating. People are just not returning to their previous level of function. And that's a major problem with 265 million people worldwide infected with COVID, and some estimates of as many as 1 in 4 people, at least prior to the time of vaccination, experiencing these cognitive symptoms. This is a neurological health crisis. I'm a neuro-oncologist, and one of my clinical specialties is to take care of people following cancer therapy who have persistent brain fog, cognitive impairment as a result of their cancer and its therapy. And this so-called chemo brain or chemo fog is very similar to what people are describing after COVID. And so this so-called COVID fog shares almost the identical symptoms. And what we're finding in the laboratory is that the two types of brain fog also share a lot of the very same cellular changes that we think are underpinning this sort of fogginess. We know that with severe COVID infection that many things can go wrong, that severe disease is associated with blood clots that can cause stroke, with even direct infection of the brain, and with the consequences of multi-organ disease and damage. But even after mild COVID, people were reporting persistent cognitive trouble. And I wondered whether the inflammatory response just to the respiratory infection might be enough to trigger neuroinflammation, inflammation in the brain, and consequently dysregulate these cells that are so important to keep in balance for healthy cognitive function. What we discovered in the laboratory in mice that have relatively mild respiratory COVID, and then in human samples, COVID elicits such a profound inflammatory response in the brain. And as a result of that, brain cells that need to work together in order to communicate and function normally were dysregulated. In severe cases of COVID, there can be direct infection of the brain, but in many cases, there's no evidence of virus in the brain. What's happening to affect the brain instead is a consequence of the immune response to the virus. And what we studied was how the immune response to infection that was limited to the respiratory system could cause inflammation in the brain through signaling molecules that go from the lung, through the blood, and to the brain. We found pretty high levels of inflammatory molecules called cytokines and chemokines in the central nervous system just from mild respiratory infection. And together with that, we saw inflammation in a particular kind of brain immune cell, which is called a microglia. When microglia and astrocytes become reactive, they then can cause dysregulation of another kind of glial cell that form the insulation around axons, quite literally like the insulation on a wire. When that happens, the neurons, the communicating cells in the brain, can't communicate with each other in their normal way, not as quickly and not as well. And so that can cause dysregulation of the whole circuit and cause cognitive impairment. This pathophysiology is particularly prominent in COVID. Now a lot more kids.
Okay. So the main point of that, I hope you guys were able to pick up on the main part of it. Just going to just point out a couple of things here. Barbara Green, who's on the meeting right now, described massive amounts of inflammation, but she also mentioned major memory issues. Now, this does not have anything to do with COVID, but just notice the fact that she described inflammation. One of the things that Dr. Prasad has indicated happens when the body is inflamed is the body gives off cytokines and chemokines. It doesn't matter where in the body the inflammation is taking place. Cytokine storm can kick in. And did you hear this neurologist pointing this out? She talked directly about these cytokines and chemokines being triggered as a result of COVID. Now, the part that really should be should make every one of us really pay attention is when she described how it affects the brain. It triggers an inflammatory response in the brain. So here's where the COVID enters into the cell. But even if one of the things she said was, even if there was no COVID infection in the brain at all, that was the whole point. There was no COVID infection in the brain at all, but this response was taking place, the cytokines and chemokines. But in the brain, the microglia and the astrocytes were having a direct impact on the axon. The axon is where the communication takes place. That's when the place where the word is stored is accessed and then transmitted to the place where the speech can actually occur. So with all this inflammation taking place in the body, it can directly affect the brain, whether it's precipitated by a virus or not. Now, but here's another one I want you guys to see, and this was directly related to the COVID. This particular story. So her name is Camallia. Camallia now tells her story. So listen to Camallia, and hers is COVID. Let's see if that works.
Hi, it's Camallia.
Camallia, sorry.
No, that's okay. No one gets it right, but that's okay. Hi, Dr. Prasad. How are you, Bruce? I had COVID it's like a year and a half now, I believe. And I had really bad brain fog, and where I could not speak clearly. I'd stumble over my words and my thoughts. I'm a nurse, okay? So it's kind of difficult to assess a patient or remember what medicines to give or how much, and did I get it right and stuff. So I've been off of work anyway for quite a bit of time since I got COVID. So Dr. Picola had introduced me to the micro EMF. Way before that, I had COVID, but I was getting that problem. But she introduced me just when I got bronchitis as well, and I was coughing a lot. And she was telling me that I was going to a wedding. You can't go to a wedding and be coughing. So she sent me the packet of the EMF and told me to open them up, open one every hour, and put it under my tongue, which, yes, it is a horrible taste. It's like you're putting dust in your mouth, and drink a lot of water. And I did that. And so that helped that with the cough. I didn't cough at the wedding at all. So that was a real gift there. And then with the brain fog, when she introduced me to get the packet, I didn't get Dr. Prasad's choice because I couldn't afford it, but I got the EMF, the brain boost, and the collagen. And I have to say that after taking the brain boost, it was such a pleasure to be able to speak a complete sentence without stumbling, without well, I couldn't think of simple words like go, stop, up, down, whatever. They weren't coming out of my mouth, and
Wow.
and it was so frustrating, and repeating myself and stumbling, and so I was able to really think straight, think clearer, remember things that I was like, wow, I can't believe I remembered that. So and in medicine you got to remember things, what you're doing, why you're giving this medication, why you're doing that. And I was able to remember and recall. My recall was coming back. I was like, wow, this is unreal. I was really impressed with it. And with my migraines, I've suffered from migraines since I was 18. I am 70 plus years old right now. And
before you go into that, Camallia,
yes.
What year was that you said that you got COVID?
I got COVID in 2021. I think it was
2021.
I believe it's 2021. It was 2021. Yes.
And by that time, a vaccine was available. Since you're in the nursing profession, were you vaccinated also?
No, sir.
Oh, you had not gotten vaccinated. Okay.
No,
so you came down with it, and but you were able to regain your cognitive function and your body function just using the micronutrients, as Dr. Prasad told you.
Correct. And the other thing as well, due to the COVID, my CAT scan of my lungs, showed different nodules and stuff in it, and my pulmonary function test was bad as well. I couldn't. Wow. Yeah, I failed. I didn't do well with the first two pulmonary function tests that I had taken, and I was taking the EMF. I can't remember when I started. I'm sorry, I don't really remember when I started using it regularly. And I was told, take 5 before I get my CAT scan and 5 after. Mm-hmm. So I was doing that. And the third pulmonary function test and the third CAT scan had improved.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Well, thank you very much for sharing that. Okay, so now that's a direct example of what the neurologist was saying in her lecture there about there being a crisis, a health crisis, a mental health crisis being triggered by COVID, she felt. But again, set all that aside and focus in on two things. The one thing that's in common with all three of those videos. The very first one, massive amounts of inflammation. The second one, inflammation. And the neurologist concerned that inflammation was going to create a mental health crisis. Brain fog. Inflammation and brain fog. Neurologists predicting that inflammation was going to trigger brain fog. Then Camallia actually had COVID and experienced massive amounts of brain fog, all connected to inflammation and large amounts of inflammation. Okay? The one thing that both Barbara and Camallia had in common is they put micronutrients in their diet. They both got their brain fog clear. They got their memory back as they're describing it. They got that all back once they added micronutrients to their diet. So now the question that you're probably asking yourself is, what's so special about this micronutrient? Is it a drug? What is it that makes it behave this way, that people can be making these claims that it's having this kind of an effect on their brain? That's probably what you're thinking, right? You're just not saying it. I know that's what you're thinking. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you briefly exactly what it is. The long and the short of it is that microdaily was developed for the military. It's a micronutrient that was not intended to be made available to the general public. The intention was never that you and I would have access to this product, the average person. That was not the intention. All this product is daily nutrition. So if you look at it in its simplest form, that's what it is. It's daily nutrition. It's the food that's missing from food. But what makes it special is the fact that the man who formulated it just happened to be quite brilliant. And he did it for the benefit of the United States government. So it was all designed originally for the military. So this is what it looked like at first. And it would fit right there in those army fatigues on the side of a soldier's pants. That was the intention. The intention was not to improve the health of people who were 60 and older and reduce their inflammation so that they didn't have arthritis and that they didn't have Alzheimer's, dementia, or Alzheimer's. That was not the intention. It was all about the soldiers on the battlefield. That's what the original intention was. So Dr. Prasad answered the call when the Department of Defense said that they needed something for the soldiers on the battlefield. All the vitamin companies in the country could have answered that call, but only Dr. Prasad did. Dr. Prasad stepped up, and in 2001, he said, I can do it. Safety tests were completed around 2004. Now, mind you, there's some animal studies that were done also in 2003, but these safety tests that were completed, very important that you pay attention to that, because it's not just safety tests. It was safety tests that were mandated by the military internal review board. Dr. Prasad had to prove that this micronutrient formula would not contraindicate with any known pharmaceutical drugs. Imagine hundreds of thousands of soldiers on the battlefield. Now you provide this new thing and it causes a reaction to Lipitor, causes a reaction to a blood thinner, causes a reaction with diabetes, or interacts with blood pressure medication, interacts with some other pharmaceutical prescribed medication for these soldiers in the battlefield. Imagine if it created a problem. They wanted something that they knew was going to be neutral, harmless, and yet powerful. And Dr. Prasad answered the call. It passed 9 months of safety testing. 9 months of safety test. That's no small task, folks. Human clinical trials were completed in 2005. It became available for the veterans and active service members in 2006 that began to use it. It didn't become available to the general public until 2012, I think it's somewhere in that area. So there was a gap there that before, it was some period of time before the general public was able to get it. And it wasn't because, once again, Uncle Sam was so excited and happy to make life better for you and me. It wasn't that at all. It really was a fluke that it happened to become available to the general public. But that's a whole other discussion in itself. Maybe Jeff can tell us that story sometime. But this is the thing that we have in common between the original formula for the military and the formula that we have today. This man right here is what we have in common between those two events. Notice, this man was the professor at the University of Colorado School of Medicine for 30 years. He was also invited to be a member of the Nobel Peace Prize nominated committee, the candidates of medicine. They don't just give that invitation to anybody. Dr. Prasad was part of that group. He was also the world's first radiation biology PhD. He knows something about radiation. He knows a considerable amount of something about radiation. His formula is packed with his experience of protecting the human body against radiation. That's a big deal. You heard what Camallia said. Camallia said that she was advised to take 5 capsules before she had her CT scan and 5 capsules after she had her CT scan. And she said the results was that there was the pulmonary function improved as a result. Now, there's no way of measuring whether the 5 capsules helped her before and after, except if you consider what Dr. Prasad described was done in clinical trials and clinical studies that prove that there is DNA repair after low-dose ionized radiation exposure. So what you would be exposed to in a CT scan, your body can actually repair itself if you put the right micronutrients in. It's pretty amazing. But Dr. Prasad is credited with discovering a number of things. He is even right now still publishing new peer review papers, and he's also writing books. He's working on his 33rd book as we speak. The man just does not stop. He partnered up with Dave Nemelka. The company Engage Global was born. So this is what we have access to today. This is the original formula. So if you don't do anything else, and some people have asked this question, but well, what if I can't afford the best formula, which is the EMF? Then this is the one that all the research was done on initially anyway. So just go with the one that you can afford. Go with it. But to get back to the answer to the question, what is it that makes this so special? Why? Why is it that somebody says that their memory came back with people who were suffering with terrible amounts of extreme amounts of inflammation? Why is it that they were claiming that they're getting such positive response to this product? Well, there's a couple of things. One, which is probably my second favorite item in this entire formula, is this vitamin E succinate. Now, if you're reading that real quickly, you'll notice one thing that should stand out to you based on our subject matter. It protects the brain. You see that? It nourishes and protects the brain. It crosses the blood-brain barrier. That's a big deal. But it nourishes and protects the brain. That's interesting. And not only that, but by the way, this vitamin E succinate, vitamin E is good anyway, no matter how you look at it. But Dr. Prasad is the scientist who discovered that vitamin E succinate, a very specific form of vitamin E, also happens to be cytotoxic to cancer cells. So it's doing a lot of other good things at the same time. But you'll also notice my first most favorite part of this entire formula is N-acetylcysteine. N-acetylcysteine raises glutathione in the body. It raises glutathione in the brain. So the brain uses the most oxygen in the entire body, which means oxidative stress is highly present in the brain. You have to get those free radicals and hydroxy radicals out. They've got to have a pathway out. And the only way to do that is with glutathione. Glutathione is referred to, as you can see here, the most powerful antioxidant in your body. But notice that it also helps not just with respiratory conditions, but it also helps with brain health. That's probably the first thing you saw that whole thing, right? Was brain health is right there. So glutathione, extremely important. So you add all of this together, all these massive amounts of antioxidants, exogenous antioxidants, triggering and stimulating endogenous antioxidants. Exogenous meaning come from the outside. Endogenous meaning antioxidants that your body produces. You have all of that activity. Guess what that's reducing? Guess what that's reducing? One word. Anybody? Scream it out. Okay. Inflammation. And if inflammation is going down, what's happening to the immune response in the brain? It's also going down. So less damage to the axon. The microglia is not responding. The astrocytes are not overreacting, not giving off those harmful immune response signals and chemicals, doing damage to the axon, and the communication improves and is better. Now, once again, we're not claiming that this product is a treatment or cure for any disease. All I'm doing is talking about the science that we just saw in a video. That's all. Science that we just saw in a video. But it's interesting that with the right nutrients in the body, it seems as though the body can improve how it works. Isn't that interesting? It should be. Everything that's in this formula is designed to help the body lower inflammation, and inflammatory response. This is what your cell is supposed to look like, illustration-wise. When there's massive amounts of free radicals or inflammation, it's like chipping away at the cells and making them degrade. Look at an apple when you open it up. It starts to turn brown. That's what's happening, it's degrading. That's inflammation, oxidative stress. This ameliorates it, neutralizes it. And again, it was never intended for the general public. Dr. Prasad made a formula for kids, a really good product, by the way, and it's based on this, the most powerful formula that we have. This one has 4 additional ingredients all designed to neutralize the harmful effects of radiation. Today, we're being bombarded, we're slammed with radiation. Today's 5G is 700 times more powerful than the original cell phone technology. 700 times more powerful than the original cell phone technology. So we need some extra help. And that's what Dr. Prasad added into this product right here. So I hope that that kind of addresses the long and the short as to why this can have such a huge impact on the brain. But this also, you might want to pay careful attention to this. Now, none of the stories included this discussion. I don't think it did anyway. But I take that twice a day, the brain boost. And I can tell you that there's some snap, crackle, and some pop going on up there when I take this. I found myself, about a year or so ago, starting to really become a little bit lax and forgetting some things. But that has made a significant difference. When it comes to the micro daily, by the way, I don't just take the normal amount that was recommended for a healthy 20-year-old soldier on the battlefield. I'm over 60, I'm 61 this month. So I take 2 times the normal amount and sometimes 3 times the recommended amount. And Dr. Prasad said it's not toxic. So that's with the micro daily. I'll take up to 3 times the recommended amount because I don't want to have coronary issues. I don't want to have abnormal cells growing on inside my body. I don't want to have inflammation triggering issues in my brain. I don't want to react to a problem. I prefer to stay ahead of it. That's me. And every time I get a little bit lazy, a little bit lax, and I don't quite take the right amount, I start to feel it in my right big toe. Yeah, it starts to call my name. Remember me? So that's why I stay ahead of it. So I'm not going to wait until there's a problem. But I wanted to just explain to you this thing about radiation right here. This is a study that Dr. Prasad was overseeing. And it's a complicated discussion. That one and this, all of them, Dr. Prasad was involved in. But these are the 2 that really help you to appreciate how powerful this formula is when it comes to repairing DNA damaged by low-dose ionized radiation. But visually, if you want to see it, instead of hearing me explain it, look at this is lung tissue. That's what this is. This is from 2 different rabbits, rabbit number 1 and rabbit number 2. And they both, the one here, rabbit number 1, his lungs look like they've been fried. It looks more like a liver than anything. But rabbit number 2, the lungs look fresh. They both were slammed with lethal doses of radiation. But rabbit number 2 was also given the food that's missing from food. So look at what it did to protect his body and the way his cells behaved. So you can just ask yourself how you want your lungs to look, how you want your brain to look with all this 5G cell phone technology that we're all walking around with, sitting around in front of computers. And before you say to yourself, I don't use those phones, I'm not around my computer all day long, it's in the air everywhere. So we're all being bathed with 5G. So just ask yourself, how do you want your insides to look with this? And that's what this formula has the ability to do. Okay, so that just gives you an idea in a snapshot of exactly what micro daily can do inside the body. Now, the last thing that I want to show you, the last story I want you guys to hear. There's a number of them I want you to hear, but this past Sunday, you can go back and listen to the recording from this Sunday if you want to hear Terry's story. Terry is like my sister, and I went into the hospital and I gave her, she had a stroke. And the neurologist in the video that you heard earlier, the neurologist mentioned that what can happen as a result of inflammation, it can lead to clotting and stroke. So that's one of the things that can happen. Well, in May of 2020, Terry had a stroke. She lost the use of the entire left side of her body by the 3 or 4 days after 2 days after they released her from ICU. She started taking micro daily. And that same night, she describes how her whole left side came back. And so I have a video of that entire thing, and that's shown on the recording from this past Sunday. So you can go back and take a look at that. But the one that I'd like to show you this time is one that Jeff shared with us. And this gentleman Patrick. Patrick had a stroke also. And Jeff, if I remember correctly, it was 2 years before you had this conversation with Patrick.
It was more than just, this was like our first year in the business. So this would have been, 9 years ago.
So about 9 years ago, but at the time that you gave him the micro daily, how long prior to that had he had a stroke? It was about 2 years before.
Yeah. It was a year earlier. He'd had the symptoms
Okay.
for a year.
For about a year. So Terri had only had a stroke within 1 week, and her symptoms seemed to reconcile. Patrick, on the other hand, is a totally different animal. Patrick had his stroke 1 year prior. That's a totally different story. Because really what they say is that the sooner you get the treatment, any kind of treatment, the better your chances are of recovery. 1 year later, he comes across micro daily. So I'm going to go ahead and play his story. And you guys can decide what you think about Patrick and what he describes happening inside his body.
My name is Patrick Wright, and I just took MMF, but let me tell you what happened before I took MMF. By the time I got here, I was like kind of tired, so I didn't have very much energy. I'm saying all this because, my energy level was low. I had a stroke, and it was a hemorrhagic stroke, and it was the one that, that is what we consider a cash out stroke. I took this medicine, and I'm doing stuff like this hand doesn't work. This whole side of my body is pretty much, what they consider paralyzed. So it doesn't work. And we're talking about it doesn't work and I'm moving everything. That's one thing, but then that's not a big thing. But for me to be able to come over here and grab this and hold it is something that I could not do at all. A couple hours ago. It's not possible for me to do that and then grab and give it back to her. That's something that does not happen. It's not possible in the condition that I'm in. So I'm not sure what else you need to know, but whatever it is that you need to know, the proof is in the pudding, and I'm showing you what the proof is right now. MMF is what it is. It's what it is.
Just correcting a micronutrient deficiency in a matter of, it was.
I don't know, Jeff. That was pretty remarkable to see that happen. Pretty remarkable. And the way you described it, Jeff, his wife was kind of blown away by that.
Absolutely. In fact, he had started to wiggle it and move it a little bit, and he asked us to just pause for his wife to be called. She drove over and met us there in the parking lot of Denny's, climbed up in, and he says, "Baby, I gotta share something with you." And I said, "Can I video this?" And I wished I would have panned the camera over because she was sitting next to me. And if I had panned the camera over, you would have seen tears just streaming down her cheeks because what she just saw her husband do. And that is reach out and grab something. Oh,
that's pretty incredible. So thank you for sharing that story with us. And if you come back on Thursday, folks, we're going to share with you Anita's story. Anita came across micro daily 10 years after she'd had a stroke. 10 years. So you got 1 week, you've got less than 2 years, 1 year, and now you're going to see what happened 10 years later. So the interesting impact on the body that reducing inflammation and adding the right nutrients into the body, what it can have on the body. So come back on Thursday and you'll see that one. There'll be the same information, but Thursday at 6:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll do part 3 of our discussion on the brain.
I might have another one as well that's right about year 5.
Perfect. So we'll see year 5 first, and then we'll also see 10 years later what happens. So come back on Thursday for that one. So here's what you want to do, folks. If you're here for the first time, just get back with the person who invited you, and they will help you to see, set up your own subscription for the product. It's pretty inexpensive. The EMF is less than $80 on a subscription. That's the discounted price. The methylated is in the $70 range, less than 70, and the original is less than $60. The brain boost is in the $40 range. And the collagen, we'll be talking about collagen, by the way, this coming Sunday with the CEO and owner of the company, David Nemelka. So you really want to hear about collagen this coming Sunday. So make sure you're there for that at 5:00 on this same Zoom information coming Sunday. But get a subscription, get a subscription, and that's what you want to do. Make sure you include the probiotic boost.
That's what I was going to say, Jonathan. When we're coming to issues with the brain, we're going to be talking about that tomorrow night. Helen and I are going to be on the corporate Zoom tomorrow night at 5, 6, 7, 8, depending upon which time zone you're in. And we're going to be talking about the connection between our guts and our brains. Big connection.
Oh, make sure you're on that that, folks. Make sure that you're on tomorrow night on the corporate 9. So 5, 6, 7, 8 p.m. So if you're on the East Coast, that's 8 p.m. When you'll be able to get that discussion. That's Jeff and his wife Helen. And by the way, they're the only ambassador 2 level affiliates in this company. So you can't get much better and much deeper reservoir of knowledge and experience than those 2 right there. Okay. So let's see if there's a couple of questions, if anybody has, before we wrap up our discussion, because we're about to pull the plug. Any questions? No such thing as a stupid question, folks. The only stupid question is the unasked question. Now, keep in mind, folks, that the FDA has not evaluated any of these comments. Testimonials are purely anecdotal. What happens to one person may or may not happen to you. I'm not a doctor, so please don't do anything I say because I say it. I strongly recommend that you seek the competent medical advice of professionals that you trust. We make no claims that these products will cure, heal, or treat any disease state. Nada. It's just the food that's missing from food. Okay, Barbara. Barbara's got a question, or you want to clarify something, Barbara? Go ahead, please.
I want to tell you how embarrassed I am for all of that broken speech, but that's because of that brain fog. But you know what I want to say is I have not been faithful to my micro daily, and I have bounced back. I have not been taking three times a day. I started as of yesterday. I'm going through the anniversary of my boy's death in May, and right before that, I go into depression. I go into shutdown. Some of my friends are on here tonight, and they say, Barbara, I can see a difference in you. So getting back on my micro daily 3 times a day, and I am taking brain boosts, but to be honest, I can't see much different. Maybe I need the CBD and the collagen, maybe, because I do have severe inflammation. I know this is a fact.
Yeah.
I would address it first off with the probiotic.
Okay, I'm on that.
But
I'm just taking it.
How much?
I'm just taking it 1 time a day.
Definitely a minimum of twice a day. You might even want to try 2 capsules in the morning and 2 capsules in the evening for the next 2 days.
Okay. I didn't want to run out. That's why I slacked up on my micro daily, but that don't work. You got to be generous.
You were telling us don't let yourself run out. Get an extra bottle. Then what'd you do?
Yeah, I'm serious. I have to, because I like I say, I went backwards. I've gained weight and everything because I've been cheating myself. But as of tonight, I want to get back where I was.
then go down that road. Increase the probiotic boost. But last week, there were a couple stories shared with the CBD boost. So that would not hurt. So if you can add CBD to your program, it will help you with the depression and the anxiety.
Okay. I am on the eye boost, and I could see my vision is much better. I had the surgery and I couldn't even see the smallest, but now I can see the smallest, and I could see an immediate difference with the eye boost. So I'm on the eye boost, the brain boost, the micro daily, the probiotic, and I'm liking the collagen and the CBD. And I want to get that green bottle of micro daily, because I heard you say something about that has to do with inflammation also, right? The green bottle of micro daily.
If you're doing EMF,
That's
EMF
good enough.
There. Stick with the
Okay.
EMF. Yep, that's the best bang for your buck. You're getting more for your investment.
Okay, thank you so much. Will do.
You're quite welcome, and thank you. Thank you for giving us the updates. And you do sound a lot clearer now than you did back when you first told that story, but your excitement back then was raw, and we just captured that. And folks need to hear. Imagine what you were like prior to taking micro daily. So
I'm serious. You're right.
That
I
was
was
huge.
just a mouth that couldn't shut up, but I'm learning to shut up. I'm learning to listen, and I'm a different person for real. But thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Edward Thompson, go ahead. You got the last word on this.
I just got a quick story, COVID story, a recent story about COVID, about a friend of mine, real close friend of mine. He tested positive for COVID. Mild case, nothing out of the ordinary. Less than a week later, he went to the hospital to have his blood drawn for blood work. He had his blood work done. He went home. By the time him and his wife got home, the hospital was calling. Come back to the hospital right now, immediately. He went back to the hospital. They hooked him up, sent him straight to the ICU because his blood work showed he was having a heart attack. They couldn't find any signs of a heart attack. Him and his wife are sitting down talking to the doctor, and she just said, "Can COVID cause these symptoms?" The doctor said, yes. So even though, just a word of caution, you might have a mild case of COVID that people are talking about now, it's still affecting the body in ways that we don't even understand.
Wow. Wow, that's interesting. And very true. Very true. So once again, I say, I take the amount that I take prophylactically. I don't want to be in that situation. I don't want to get a phone call telling me to come back to the hospital right away because I'm in the middle of a heart attack. So most people don't find out about the heart attack until if they wake up on the gurney somewhere. So I recommend everybody just stay ahead of it. You have found the right thing to go with now. You have found the right thing to lead with, the right thing to put into your body, and to give you the best chance, give your body the best chance to fight with. Okay, so thank you guys very much for joining us. And once again, for the record, my name is Jonathan Jones. It's been my pleasure, my privilege to be your host and moderator. We had Jeff Ashby, Edward Thompson as our co-host for the evening. I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow night on the corporate call. You'll hear Jeff and Helen discussing the brain, the gut-brain connection. So you're going to want to make sure that you're there for that. I guarantee you by the time you're done with that, you'll see the benefits of making sure that you're putting the probiotic boost into your diet. And then on Thursday, we're going to be doing part 3 of this discussion here about the brain. We're going to share those additional stroke stories with you that will blow your mind, pun intended. And then, of course, by Sunday, we'll be talking about the Collagen Daily with the president and CEO of Engage Global. You are going to want to make sure that you are here for that discussion. You're going to want to hear that. All right, you guys, so y'all have a good night. We'll see you then tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, Thursday at 6 o'clock, Sunday at 5 o'clock. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a great evening.
Thank you, Jeff. And Barbara, if you want to stick around for a few minutes, you can, or we can go phone call.
Okay, Naomi is on, and I think, yeah, stick around.
Okay. All right, I'll be right back.